I had always been cautious about where I stayed when traveling. I know that the internet is a great place to find deals, but there's always a lingering doubt in the back of my mind about trusting the random hosts who advertise their homes. Still, when my best friend and I decided to take a road trip through the mountains, we were looking for something inexpensive and charming. That's when I found the listing. The house looked beautiful, small, cozy, tucked away in a wooded area that seemed perfect for a quiet getaway. The photos were bright and inviting, with huge windows showing off the scenic view of the trees surrounding the property. The reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Pristine cleanliness, peaceful atmosphere, and a very kind host who had apparently gone out of her way to make guests feel at home. Honestly, I thought we hit the jackpot. We arrived just after sunset, and the house was even more secluded than I imagined. It was at the end of a long dirt road, with no neighbors in sight. There was a feeling of isolation, but it wasn't unpleasant. The air was crisp, and the only sounds I could hear were the rustling of leaves and the occasional bird call. We pulled up to the house and were greeted by an eerie, almost unnatural silence that filled the air. It felt like we were miles away from the rest of the world. The host, an older woman named Martha, was waiting for us on the front porch. She greeted us with a warm smile, and there was something kind about the way she spoke. She gave us the tour of the house, mentioning all the little quirks and amenities. The place was even more charming inside, with a large fireplace and a cozy living room filled with vintage furniture. She seemed genuine. There was something off about her. A little too much eagerness in her voice when she told us she hoped we'd enjoy the solitude. When she left, I felt the strange weight of her presence linger, but I tried to push the feeling aside. I didn't want to be paranoid, and the house itself was lovely. My friend Mia was already unpacking in the second bedroom when I noticed something strange. There was a framed photograph on the wall, tucked into the corner of the living room. It was a family portrait, Martha, a man who looked much younger, and two young children. The picture was taken in the same living room. There was something wrong about the way the people in it looked. The man's smile was too wide, his eyes too empty. The children seemed stiff, like they were posing but not really there. It was unsettling, to say the least. I pointed it out to Mia, but she brushed it off. Probably just some old photo from when the house was first built, she said, not thinking much of it. That night, things took a turn. We were sitting in the living room, enjoying some snacks, when the power went out. The house fell into complete darkness. I don't know why, but I felt a jolt of fear run through me. It wasn't just the power failure. It was something in the air, something I couldn't explain. I thought I heard something faintly tapping at the window, like fingers gently knocking against the glass. Mia didn't seem to hear it, and I didn't want to sound paranoid, so I let it go. I fumbled for my phone to use as a flashlight, and just as the screen lit up, I saw something outside the window. A face. Someone standing just beyond the glass, watching us. But when I blinked, it was gone. I froze, my heart racing. "Mia," I whispered, but she was already asleep on the couch, completely oblivious. The next morning, I tried to shake off the creeping dread, but it only seemed to grow stronger. I ventured outside, wanting to clear my head. That's when I noticed something strange. There were no footprints on the path leading to the house. Not a single sign of anyone having walked on the dirt road in days, maybe even weeks. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. That evening, when Martha came by to check on us, I asked her about it. I told her I thought I heard strange noises the night before, and I wasn't sure if the power going out had anything to do with it. She smiled and reassured me that the house had been quiet for years. She then casually mentioned that sometimes the trees around the house could make odd sounds at night, branches scraping against the windows or the wind howling. But as she spoke, I noticed her eyes darting to the side. Her smile faltered just for a moment before she excused herself and left. That night, after another eerie silence fell over the house, Mia and I decided to sleep with the lights on. I woke up in the middle of the night to the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, right outside our bedroom door. My heart dropped into my stomach. I held my breath, straining to hear over the pounding in my ears. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Then there was a soft knock. I shot up in bed, frozen with fear. I whispered, "Mia, wake up." She groggily opened her eyes. "What's wrong?" The knock came again. I wasn't imagining it. It was real, and it was getting louder. The door handle began to rattle. I could barely speak. "Someone's here." The door creaked open on its own. I didn't move, too scared to even breathe. Then I saw her, Martha, standing in the doorway. But it wasn't the same Martha from earlier. Her face was pale, almost sickly, her eyes wide with a kind of manic intensity I hadn't noticed before. She didn't say a word. She just stared at us. Her lips trembled as if she were trying to speak, but the only sound she made was a soft, raspy breath. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream, but I was paralyzed. I could only watch as she slowly stepped back into the darkness, her figure disappearing into the hallway. The next morning, we were gone. We packed our things as quickly as possible and left without a word. I tried to contact Airbnb, but the listing had already been removed. When I searched for any trace of the house, I couldn't find anything. No phone number for Martha, no address. It was as if the house never existed. I'll never forget the look in her eyes. I don't know what she wanted or why she was there, but I've learned one thing. Some places are best left unexplored. And whatever was in that house, it wasn't just Martha. It was something much darker. Every time I close my eyes, I can still hear those footsteps. And I know deep down that she's still watching. I still can't shake the feeling that something's watching me. It's been months, but every time I close my eyes, I can still see it. Those eyes staring at me from the dark. It was a few weeks ago when I booked an Airbnb in a quiet, wooded town. My plan was simple: a weekend getaway to escape the chaos of city life. Just a couple of days to relax, read, and clear my head. The listing seemed perfect. Nestled in the woods, a cozy cabin, private, peaceful. The pictures on the website looked charming. Rustic furniture, a big stone fireplace, even a hot tub on the deck overlooking a small creek. The host, a guy named Greg, had great reviews. He was friendly in his messages, and the whole thing seemed too good to be true. I booked it without a second thought. When I arrived, the place was even more beautiful than the photos. The cabin stood at the edge of a dense forest, the only sound being the rustling of leaves and the occasional bird call. The air felt fresh and crisp. It was exactly what I needed. Greg was there to greet me in person. He seemed a bit off, not rude or anything, but there was something strange about him. His eyes didn't meet mine for too long, and his smile always lingered a little too long. He explained the house rules, gave me the Wi-Fi password, and left. I assumed I was just being paranoid. The first night went smoothly. I settled in, had dinner, and enjoyed a quiet evening in front of the fire. As the hours passed, though, I started to get an unsettling feeling. It was hard to pinpoint, but something about the house felt wrong. Around midnight, I heard it, a soft scratching sound coming from the walls. At first, I dismissed it as an animal outside, but then it came again, closer this time. I decided to investigate. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a flashlight, and checked the windows. Nothing. No animals. I was starting to think I was just imagining things when I heard it again, this time from upstairs. I froze listening. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps, as if someone was walking around upstairs. My heart started pounding in my chest. I was alone, right? I was sure of it. Greg had left, and I hadn't seen any other cars nearby. The air grew thick, like the house itself was holding its breath. I grabbed my phone and texted Greg, asking if anyone else was staying here, or if he had any idea what might be making the noise. His response came almost immediately. "There's no one else. You're alone there. Maybe it's the old pipes or the house settling. Let me know if you need anything." I tried to calm myself down. "Old pipes," I muttered. "Right." But the footsteps didn't stop. I waited for what felt like hours, my mind racing, trying to rationalize the sounds. Eventually, I decided to call it a night and went to bed, hoping I could get some sleep. But that was when things got worse. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my door creaking open. I shot up in bed, heart racing. The room was dark, but the outline of the door was clear. Slowly, I saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was just a silhouette, but I could see enough to know it wasn't Greg. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, like it was waiting for something. I tried to speak, to call out, but no sound escaped my throat. My body was frozen. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the figure stepped back into the darkness. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my phone and texted Greg again, but this time, I was frantic. "There's someone in the house. Please come back." The reply came a few minutes later, but it didn't ease my fear. "Relax. There's no one else there. Are you sure you're not just hearing things? The house is old." I felt trapped. The room was suffocating, and the thought of being alone in that house with that thing in the hallway was unbearable. I decided to leave. I grabbed my bag and raced downstairs, but as I reached the front door, something caught my eye. The hot tub on the deck, the steam rising from it, but it wasn't from the tub. A figure was standing there, in the shadows, just outside the glass door. The same figure from before. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my mind spiraling. I needed to get out, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. What if the figure followed me? What if it was Greg, or someone he knew? I couldn't risk it. I don't know how long I sat there trembling, watching the figure by the deck. Time felt like it had stopped. Then suddenly the phone rang. It was Greg. "Are you all right? I just checked the cameras around the cabin. It looks like someone's been on the property. I'm coming over now." I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to be alone anymore. The thought of Greg coming back made me feel a little safer, but a part of me wondered if I was just being led into something worse. He arrived about an hour later, walking up the driveway with a flashlight in hand. But when he reached the door, he didn't knock. He just stood there, silent. Then, through the small crack in the door, I saw it, a grin, wide, too wide. "Let me in. It's not safe out here." Greg's voice was soft, but there was something off about it. The smile didn't fade. I backed away from the door, my pulse racing, panic flooding my chest. I didn't know what to do, but then it hit me. I never saw Greg leave. I locked every door and window, and I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I left the cabin. I didn't even wait for daylight. I packed my things in a hurry and drove straight home, my hands shaking the entire way. I don't know who or what was in that house. But the thing I can't stop thinking about is the fact that I never once saw Greg leave. And I don't think he ever will.